The Paranormal Project Radio Show. Here are your hosts, Scott Allen and Christina Bowen.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to the Paranormal Project Radio Show. Hi, Christina. How are you?
I am great tonight. How are you doing, Scott?
Doing okay. Glad to be here. So last week we were at the Enfield Demon House, and I do have an announcement that I want to make about that because I'm kind of excited. So I went and we do have an event. Hey, Ryan. Hi, Bob. Good to see you. We have an event there. There's one ticket left if you want to check out this place, and I'll talk to you more about that. But we went to the Enfield Demon House and filmed an episode for Dark Echoes Paranormal, which is on Amazon Prime and also Paraflix if you have access to that. That's coming up this spring, I would imagine. But we went through, and I'm not going to go through what we got because I feel like you'll find that out when you see the episode. But I'm going to tell you the place is no joke. We are running an we are running an event there. There is one ticket left, and this is for what's the date? I wrote it down. April 20th in Enfield. So it's that far out, and we just have one ticket left. So if anyone is in the Connecticut area and you want to check this place out, it's a small home. So there's a limited number of people that they can allow in. And it is no joke. I mean, I was getting the chills. We talk about the demon being gone. I'm not so sure. I think the demon might still be there, kind of lying dormant. And you'll see what I mean. But I do have another announcement to make regarding that house. It seemed to be a lot of people questioning the house and what the activity was. So on April 10th, we are going to be live streaming from the Enfield Demon House. Am I giving us the right date? The 10th, right? Hang on. Let me just make sure I'm telling you the right. Because if it's not a Wednesday, it's not the right date. Yeah, April 10th. April 10th, we're going to be live streaming from the Enfield Demon House. We're going to have cameras set up in each of the rooms. So you'll still be in Tennessee, but you'll be there to kind of see what's going on. But we'll have a camera set up in each of the bedrooms upstairs and certainly downstairs in the living area where we were getting a lot of activity. So if you are here and you are watching the show on April 10th, we will be coming to you live from the Enfield Demon House, and you can check out what's going on in that house. So I encourage you to join us. I also want to announce, of course, Dark Echoes. I've done 3 episodes. Actually, I've done 2 episodes. I've got one more that we're filming in Pennsylvania in a few weeks. But the other one was in Huntington, Pennsylvania. That's hunting, like you're going Hunting Dawn, Pennsylvania. And we filmed there, and we are having an event there on May 25th at 1:00. And I think there are still tickets available for that. So it's a meet and greet with the cast and crew at the haunted location, which is the Clifton 5 Theater in Huntington, Pennsylvania. So if you want to come and spend the night and investigate with us in a haunted theater, we welcome you to come out to Pennsylvania and join us. You can check out Dark Echoes on Facebook and get a link to, because all the tickets are available on Eventbrite. Also, if you go on our page here, you'll be able to get the links to it as well and go. But just keep in mind, Enfield has only one ticket left. So if you're interested in going, don't wait. The other one, I think there are plenty of tickets in Pennsylvania, which brings us, and it's a nice segue into our guest today, because our guest is Tom Gormely. Now, Tom, hey, there's the Enfield Demon House. Hello from Enfield. We're so excited too. Yeah, we can't wait. Jay and Elka and Mary, hello, and Adam. Thanks for joining us. Tom, I only met back over Labor Day. I was at the was it the Salem Paracon with my son and get chatting with him, and we connected. And then when we were filming in Pennsylvania for Dark Echoes, I said, I need someone to come drive down with me. Who wants to go? And he volunteered, sucker. He volunteered. And so I said, great. And so he filmed the episode with me, and I think he's going to be doing another episode with me coming up soon. So you'll meet him here tonight, but you'll also see him on Dark Echoes. So I'm going to bring you out. Tom, welcome to the show, my friend. Where are you? There you are. How you doing?
There I am. Hey, what's going on? How are you guys tonight?
Good. I'm so glad you came on, and I'm so glad that you're going to be able to, to come back to Pennsylvania with me for the other show that we're doing, the other episode that we're doing. But you're involved with the paranormal, Archangel of the Paranormal. That's sort of your thing, right? That's your name. How did you get that?
Long time ago. We're talking almost 25 years.
I was just little back.
Yeah, it was almost to the point where after having years of experience doing this, and a lot of times I would go in and help other investigators that couldn't solve issues in people's homes, to the point where it was almost like, when, I hate to describe it this way, when God sent the Archangel Michael to defeat the devil in battle and all that. So it was almost like I felt like my calling was to help others defeat the problems they were having. And it's almost like something that caught on. Somebody like mentioned it to me one time in passing. It's almost like, hey, you helped us out. And it just caught on, and it just stuck with me.
Kind of stuck, yeah.
Yeah, when you have years of experience doing this. I'm not a demonologist, but I've studied demonology, parapsychology, and like I've said before, I'm a jack of all trades and the paranormal master of none. But I'm always at it. I never give up on a client or anything like that. So I'm pretty ferocious when it comes to helping people be able to sleep at night and overcome their issues.
Do you do a lot of home cases still, or not so much anymore?
Not too much anymore. I'm doing a lot of promotions, doing a lot of paracons. I'm actually almost in instructor mode, where we do a lot of events where people come that are new to the paranormal and want to get into it, and I try and help them learn
Paranormal 101.
Exactly. So when they come to our events, and I'm in teaching mode, so I want to show them people that are interested, and I take them aside and just, help them out. There's some people that are all at different levels. So it's almost like whoever I'm dealing with or talking with one-on-one, I know where they're at and what I could do to try and help them out, and always let them know that, my phone's always there if you need me to help you out.
So what is your process if someone calls you or emails you and says, hey, I have a problem. I have a spirit in my house. It's, doing whatever it does.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the process is first you want to make sure people aren't nuts. But, having a psychology background, because some people just want attention, anything like that. You really have to dig in, get a good history. I know some people have little questionnaires that they go over. After doing this for a while, it's almost like it's all up in my head. So I know exactly what type of questions I'm going to ask. Where I'm at, what I'm dealing with. Could it be them? Could it be this, could be spirits in there? Did they just change their medication? Something like that. It could be just about anything. I'm very into trying to find out exactly what's going on first. And history is a big thing for me too. I need to know every inch of history of a place also. I do my due diligence and all that, because I don't want to just say, oh, I think it's this. I want to make sure that I know 98% sure that that's what it is, because you're never going to be perfect in the paranormal. So, I've said it before. My favorite quote is, you're never 100% right. You're never 100% wrong about the paranormal. That's why it's paranormal. So, and you have to, do your best with your experiences that you have to be able to come up with a solution and how you're going to move energy from the house, or how to heal whatever's there, whether I have to heal the people that are there, because sometimes their traumas, they manifest these hauntings, or is it the spirit trying to tell their story? Do I have to heal them to give them the words to make the decision if they want to move on or not, or figure out how to live with the other people in the home.
Right.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if you can get, I mean, you theoretically, you can cross people, but I feel like if they don't want to go, they're not going to go.
No, they have to make their own decision. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. If you were a smoker and, I told you quit smoking, but it's until you make that decision to listen to my words, you're just going to keep smoking. So it's the spirit world. They still have, in theory, they still have free will when they're in that plane. So to make that decision to move along or stay. So
Exactly.
Hey, Betsy Brown Williams. Oh, and she says, hey to Thomas. There we are.
Hey, Betsy. she's got the best smile in the paranormal. So yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So she smiles with her smile and her eyes all smile at the same time. So.
Well, I got to tell you, after blackout, I'm usually the most handsome guy in paranormal, but only after you turn the light on.
Oh, it's funny. I wanted to tell you, Christina, I've told Scott this one time before. I think he was on a podcast and I mentioned it. I think I've known Scott for over 20 lifetimes. That's why we kind of cut it up. And
Oh, wow.
something I've learned over those 20 lifetimes is Scott's dad jokes are worse than mine. So that's what I learned.
Oh my gosh. I can count on him for a bad dad joke every single episode.
Yeah.
And my
Very
son,
reliable.
my son who's 10 will just say, why don't you just go on dadjokes.com? Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Today at work, one of the guys, he's our detailer, and he's really gotten into the paranormal, and I kind of talked to him about all the stuff we're doing and being on tonight and all that. And he had gotten a book he went to fly somewhere, and he just bought the book to read on the plane. He only read it on the plane. It's a book of dad jokes, and he actually gave it to me today. So that's kind of funny.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Might have to pull it out and recite some.
There you go. I don't know. They just kind of happen.
Oh yeah, they have to. They got to be natural. They got to fit the situation.
Oh, they're very organic. Very organic when it comes out. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
True. So I have to tell you, you intrigued me when we were driving to Pennsylvania. We had some time in the car, and one of the things that intrigues me is that you are a profiler, sort of, but you profile the ghosts, the spirits.
Yeah. Anything on that nature, because, I think we talked about this before, but what I used to do for a living is, when you work with the prisoners and all that, and you're in a situation of trying to quell things in the different region with crisis management, you have to learn all about the inmates. So you learn the psychology of them, to the point where you have to profile. So if something goes off at one of the prisons, you have to be prepared with your team and how you're going to approach it. So after I left the prison, with that knowledge, I started having a hobby of profiling historic serial killers and just trying to figure out, okay, what makes them click? What's up, Matt? And, when you do that, it came to the point where I started doing it a lot and became, a little bit known for that. I've done other podcasts about profiling historic serial killers and all that. And I do a little thing on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram on Tuesdays. I call it Tuesday Morning Serial, just a little snippet of 60 seconds about weird things that serial killers have done and all that. But I think it's more for me is educating people about them. Because in our lifetimes we'll intermingle with 37 serial killers, so that's like a gun
really
in our lifetime, and you have to be prepared. So when I tell these stories, it's not to glorify them, it's to prepare people to know how crazy some people are out there that are walking around, and be prepared for the red flags that you might see, how some of these people are brought up, and when you know those things, you're less likely to put yourself in a situation, when you're out or about, make sure you walk with somebody to the car in a situation that you're unaware of. It's just safety of it, being, ex-law enforcement. Those are the things I do. I used to do bodyguard work. So those are the things that you have to help people with, and be aware of those things that keep them safe. So, it's not glorifying them. I don't care what anybody says. I'll never glorify somebody that murders people. It's nuts. So, and I want to remember the victims, and their families and all that, and what they went through, and to keep other families from going through that too. And but
well, let me ask you.
Yeah,
let me
go
ask you
ahead.
this, 'cause I'm really interested though, in how you do it with someone who's not here. How you
Yeah, how
folks,
does that translate to
how does it
paranormal?
translate into the paranormal, like into well, okay, as an example, we talked about Adam at the Shanley Hotel, and I don't know if you've had an
Mhm.
experience or not, but we have talked about
No.
it. How do you
Yeah,
profile somebody like that when we don't really, all you're getting is their spirit?
well, a lot of times it is that communication, especially somebody like yourself that picks up on it and what they're telling you, how they're
Mhm.
delivering it. It's with anything. Most serial killers always give those red flags. And if you know what you're looking for and that type of trauma they've had through a lifetime and why they do the things they do, it's to the point where I'll talk about, Jeffrey Dahmer. All right. A lot of people don't realize is Jeffrey Dahmer, he grew up, his mother left, his father wasn't really there for him. He felt abandoned. And that trauma manifested later on. And, that's why he consumed people, because he didn't want them to leave him. So he consumed them so they would always be with him. So when he killed them, he didn't want them to leave. So he consumed them. That's, the trauma that comes in with it. Now, it's with anything. When you know the trauma, whether it be the living, sometimes I have to profile the living that I'm working a case for, or the dead. When you get the history, how did they die? What, if you could find out who lived in the house, if I'm contacted with them. But you have to discern that also, because you don't necessarily be talking to those people. Somebody could be disguising as those people. You never know what spirit you're talking to. So it's very important to know the history and to discern those types of things, because you have to be able to do that, to be able to profile properly. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to know the history. And then you have to take that psychology part of it too. Just because they don't have the shell anymore, they still have that ability to have that trauma that might be holding them here. It's an old shaman thing where trauma holds us back, where your
Mhm.
spirit could die, but also the trauma is still there holding you back. It almost becomes two figures. It's been known in the paranormal that there's a spirit there, but all of a sudden in the background, I've seen shadows along with the spirit, almost like they're two people. And that shadow is the trauma that holds them here on this plane, or whatever you want to call it, or how, because we don't know where we go afterwards, if it's different planes, different whatever. But
Right.
that trauma holds. I had a case where a gentleman passed away in this basement of this art gallery, which wasn't an art gallery at the time. But when we did a Estes method with, my friend who's a psychic medium, so she had everything on and she was channeling the gentleman that died. But every time we asked him, do you want to still be here and all that, he would, say help, and we try and help him. But then all of a sudden we had the SLS camera going at the same time. If you're, your audience knows, it's like the green stick figures. It picks up energy and you could communicate. So I have the stick figure of her sitting there, and then the gentleman, as she's talking, he appears. But then every time I tried to tell him, you have free will, you don't need to be here anymore, trying to get him to make the decision to move on, all of a sudden his demeanor would change and another figure would pop up. And then he'd start swearing at us. But then when the figure goes away, he asks for help again. It was almost like he was stuck, and that trauma was still there of him not knowing that he died. He was an alcoholic street person. So it's almost like he died during a point where he didn't know that he split, and it's still there holding him back. And we're trying to figure out how to help him heal to move on. I'm still working on that case. It's not instantaneous. I know people like watch
Right.
a lot of TV and all that, but everything
It's
doesn't
not
happen
wrapped
in
up in
one
an
day.
hour.
Yeah, and
No.
it's a hard case, but I think I think we're on the better part of it right now, and I really want to help that spirit move on, because I feel so bad that he's being held back by a trauma that he's got to know that it can't hold him here. He has that free will to go, and he just needs to make that decision. And hopefully, if we keep at it, that'll happen. So, yeah.
It's really an interesting service because, you know, they're not, I mean, they're people, but they're not physical people. They can't get up and walk out of your room like they can walk out. And so you're dealing with a spirit that, I mean, it's so not concrete, you know. I don't know what word it is that I'm thinking of, but it's so, yeah, it's a very different way of looking at things. You know, you can't, I don't know if you can reason with them like you can reason with people, and you don't know if you're getting through. You can't get facial expressions or body language or any of that to know how they are, you know.
It is. It's almost like, you know, when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, I really like this person, and you get that feeling and all that. But me being an empath, you know, I feel those energies, and it's like when I'm dealing with certain spirits, I sometimes feel that I feel like I'm getting through. You know, you get that feeling like things have changed, the energy changes in the right direction or something like that. Or, you know, I use my instrumentation to verify what I'm feeling. So if I feel something there, I put an SLS camera, and then something pops up and I say, hey, can you wave? And it waves. I know I might have an audience, and then I'm going to try and, you know, communicate that way with my voice recorder, and whatever way it wants to come through, whether it be visually or whether it be, you know, through the voice recorder and all that. Because I don't hear like Scott, you know, I know you can pick up on things giving you messages and all that. I don't pick up things that way. I just know when things are there, and it gives me the ability to be able to say, okay, let me check it out with a piece of equipment just to verify it's there. Yeah.
Tom, is that a voice in you hear?
Yeah,
that
that's
voice?
yeah, that's my
Okay,
that's
I
my
was hearing it too.
Okay. Well,
that's my fiance talking to the cat.
That's all right. Funny thing is,
sorry about that.
the first time we've had voices come through on this show. That's why I was asking. I'm like, I don't always hear them
It's
until
happened a
after.
couple of times, actually.
Don't worry, it's the ghost of my fiance and cat.
Yeah, we had a cat come
They're
through.
alive. Yeah.
We had a cat come through. You could hear the cat meowing. There was no cat.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. So that's real cool.
Yeah.
So.
I need to go back and listen to the show we did last week to see if anything came through. I didn't hear it during the show, but you know, I don't always hear it during the show.
I know sometimes on replay is when you pick it up. Yeah.
That Enfield house, I heard so much about it years ago when really there was a lot of talk about it in circles and all that. And I can't remember who it was reached out to me and wanted me to try and like check it out or whatever at one time to see what I thought. I don't remember what happened, why I never went, but you know, things happen for a reason sometimes. You know, I think the right person went there when they needed to. You never know who's going to be that person that tunes in on that energy and is able to, you know, I don't want to say take control of it, because you really have no control over something that's of that evil type of nature from what they say. You never know with that. But again, you know, with crisis things, and I've talked about this before, but even with, you know, when you're dealing with a supposed demon or anything like that, it's just like crisis management, or once you know somebody's name and all that, you have control over it. So, and I think that's why a lot of exorcisms and all that are done. They try and get the name of the demon. But it's with anything, when I deal with somebody and once I know their name, it humanizes them. It brings them back down. And it's just with anything, whether I'm humanizing a spirit that may not be a demon, just might be an angry spirit, which is a majority of the time. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't think I've run into anything that evil that I know of, but you know, you never know. It's that discernment. Sometimes you might miss what you're doing. I've had a lot of cases where I've second guessed myself. So, hey, Lauren, and Irene earlier, I forgot to say hi to her.
Have you dealt with anything that you feel has been evil like that? Non-human evil.
Yeah, I'm still second guessing myself. You know, we're talking over a year later. I had a case here in Connecticut, up in the Suffield area, and we coined it the murder house. This house, when we did the history of it, we find out back in the 1920s that the people that lived there, it was a man, his wife, his 6 children. It was a tobacco field that he curated and all that, and he had people working. So there was a house right by that had people working for him. And he had gone away on a trip to New York for some business, come back, found out his wife cheated on him with one of the boarders and became enraged and bludgeoned her to death in front of his 6 children and killed her right there in what was the kitchen at the time. But when this house renovated over the years, there was a back room that used to be the kitchen. Now, the people that lived in this house were 3 guys that looked like big motorcycle guys and all that. You wouldn't think they'd be afraid of anything. Well, they reached out to us because in the house, they kept getting, they had cameras up. They kept getting these really cool looking orbs where I was like, man, that's not dust. That's not bugs. That's, that's actually the way it's moving. There's something down there that doesn't make sense. And they were getting poltergeist activity where the basement door was opening and closing at night, opening and slamming to the point where they rolled the couch against it at night so they could try and get some sleep. They would have sleep. Yeah, they would get sleep paralysis, feel like something was sitting on them. They had one time they were out partying, and I don't think they were drunk at the time, but they had a beer can move at least 3 feet across the table, which I know sometimes with moisture it'll move a little bit, but not that far. Shadow figures in the back and all that. So they're pretty freaked out. So
it's a lot of activity.
There was tons of stuff going on. But, we ended up going and doing interviewing them and all that and determined they're not, they're on the up and up. And we went to go investigate the home. And as we're going, hi, Kathy. So as we're going through the home, I had an SLS camera up, and a friend that I was working with at the time, Jenna Beth, she's the psychic medium. And so she had her phone going. And we're trying to say, hey, is anybody there? And all of a sudden I had that feeling, when the whole shift of energy changed. My hair stood up on me, and then all of a sudden 2 figures pop up in front of me. And one of the figures looked like it was bludgeoning the other one, like it was reenacting the murder from the 1920s. So I started trying to communicate. I didn't know if it was residual or if I could communicate with it, but it made it look like it was residual. But as I communicated, the one stick figure moved away. And as I said, you can't do this anymore. This happened in the past. We can't keep this going on. So trying to talk, bangs on the wall started going off as loud as 22 gunshots. But on the video, it didn't sound as loud. But being there, it was freaky. I mean, anytime it hit, it was almost like I felt like PTSD, like a gunshot going. Like, oh my God, what's going on? So I was banging or just trying to hang in there. And finally the banging stops and the other figure's there, and it, it's kind of like rolling like this, almost like it was hurt. I said, if you're the woman and you don't want to be here anymore, if you don't want this to stop, I'm going to reach my hand out. All you got to do is touch it, and you can make the decision to move on. You have free will. So I put my hand out, and you can see on the video, the stick figure reaches out and then disappears off the SLS camera. And then everything just calmed for just like a minute. But when we entered this place, there was over 8 spirits that she picked up on. But the thing was, we went through to bless the house, try to get rid of the negative energy, keep the good energy in there. Some of the spirits there were family members that we picked up on. But there was one spirit that seemed to be hiding from us in the basement, and I was concerned with this. So when we did the initial blessing and all that, I felt like I didn't feel like it went right, because sometimes it doesn't always work on the first time. So we left, and at the time, my partner that I was working with, she and her husband went to Lake George, and she called me at 5 a.m. She felt the energy of the house followed her to Lake George and tried to choke her in her sleep. So we're like, this thing's mad at us. And I'm like, this is not good. And then, she came home, and a couple days later, I was sleeping, and I had this weird dream of this woman dressed in that old Burger King outfit, the brown and the orange, and remember that old Burger King? I don't know if you go way back, that nasty looking. Oh yeah, it was horrible. And she was like yelling at me, and then grabbed me by the neck, started choking me. And I'm like, oh, crap. And I wake up and I still felt the hand marks on my neck. And it felt like attached again, like it came through that way. I don't know why. Burger King made no sense to me. But the thing is I knew we didn't do something enough. We had to go back. So before we went back, usually when I do a house blessing, I leave a recorder going. And I was like, well, I was so busy at the time because it was like a busy time of the year. And I said, let me listen to the recording before we go back again, just to see. And the recorder was going down in the basement because that was where most of the activity was, they were saying, was coming from. So I'm listening to it, and all of a sudden I heard this evil laugh, and then this metal pole drop. But you could hear Janabeth and I talking upstairs. And I hear this down there. So I know it was downstairs. And I'm like, that's the thing that was hiding from us. So we have to do something about that. So we go back, and Janabeth, you know, she does the shamanistic practices. So, you know, the pagan we did something different, which most people, when they bless a house, they do it a certain way they're used to. So we decided to do something unprecedented. So we decided to bless the house 4 different ways. So we did a pagan blessing, a shaman blessing. We did the Christian blessing, and did a Tibetan healing bowl and all that. We just threw the whole kitchen sink at this place.
The whole shebang.
Yeah, because we're feeling like, hey, you know, I think the property had some Indian energy to it. It had all kinds of different energy. So we did that blessing, and we blessed the people in the home before they left. You know, when they come back, and we salted. We did, you know, everything you could think of. We were thinking of it and doing it, you know, holy water, everything, oil, everything you could think of. And finally, they said, we've been able to sleep. And they hadn't been able to sleep for like over 1.5 years. So no problems. But the funny thing is a year later, they decided they were going to sell the house because they kind of had a falling out, the 3 guys. So whatever was in there, I don't think wanted them to leave because once they decided and made that decision, they sent us a recording that every 3 hours for 3 minutes, they would have this loud knocking. And I have a recording of it that they sent. And we said, well, do you want us to come over and, you know, try and, you know, quell that again because you're trying to sell the house? He didn't want us to come. It's almost like his whole demeanor changed about everything going on. It was like, well, I'm going to sell the house. I'm not worried about it anymore. I don't care or whatever.
Somebody else's problem.
Yeah, it's going to be somebody else's problem. But, you know, which kind of, you know, got me a little upset. So they call us a couple days later. The realtor went in and brought a couple in, and they were down in the basement, and she was showing them around, and a disembodied voice said, get the F out. And they freaked out, and they went running up the stairs, and the disembodied voice says, you're going to fall. And the guy fell up the stairs. So we get a call, and they told us this happened. And I'm like, well, we really need to come and help you. He still didn't care. So a few days later, they call us and said that the house sold. I don't know how the realtor got it in herself to go back after hearing that, but a different couple went in, and nothing happened, and they ended up, you know, buying the house. I'm starting to think the spirit didn't like the other couple and didn't want them there and decided to act up, or, you know, something bad could be there. I'm still second guessing myself on that certain energy that's supposedly still there, whether it's evil or whatever, I don't know. It bothers me, and I would love to go back there, but I know from what I'm hearing later on, yes, he said they sold the house, but when they did the inspection, I think him being standoffish and all that, karma hits you sometimes. And I guess there was severe termite damage where it would cost them something like, I think it was like something like $70-something thousand, and he had already moved out of the house to Florida. He wasn't even around. So for him to continue the sale of the house, he was going to have to get that taken care of. So I don't know if these people ever moved in, if it ever got done, or if it's still on the market. So, but I can't tell anybody where the place was, just it was in Suffield. And even if they track the guy when he murdered, the street names changed back in the day to what they are now. So it'd be very hard to track that unless, you know, you talk to the lady that got us all the history. But we knew everything about the guy. When he went to jail, we knew every inmate he had during the whole time he was in jail. That's how much information we had. But that's what I do. That's where the going down the rabbit hole comes from. I've been known to be a ferocious historic. I don't jump into everything and all that, and I make sure that I know everything I need to know. I don't know. I
That's
think
good.
it's
That helps you
OCD.
separate, the
Yeah,
more research you have, the more information you have on something like that. It
yeah,
helps you separate the lore from the truth. You need to separate those two. You need the actual facts.
exactly. That's why a lot of historic places, they're tough because there is a lot of lore, and then you have to really weigh what's real, what's not. And then sometimes some of these historians still use the lore. You have to really do your due diligence. Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to take in who's given you the history too. Are they just trying to promote their town, or are they actually giving you the exact stuff that you need? Because that could happen. You really have to know who you're talking to and how they're delivering it. Are they giving me the real information, or are they just trying to promote the area or that certain facility? So,
Yeah.
It's interesting because, when I was in Connecticut on Sunday, I went through without any equipment. I mean, I didn't have anything with me, and it was what I was able to pick up psychically, and it was interesting what the owner of the house was able to corroborate, and let me know that, yeah, that makes sense, and what you're feeling is what we felt, and what you're hearing is, telling us is what we know or what we feel. But it'll be really interesting to go back with the equipment to back that up and see if any of that comes through. The interesting thing, and I will say this about the house, I feel like there was these stories of there was a demon there. Now, I mean, look, I've had people call, everybody's got a demon, everybody's got a portal, you know what I mean, in their house. But I will say this about the demon house is that I was the only one that detected this, probably because it was psychically. But in a certain part of the house, I detected rotting flesh, that sick smell. I've never gotten that on an investigation before. I had no equipment. There was no reason for it. There was nothing, in that. It wasn't like they had food hanging around. There's nobody that even lives in that part of the house. There was nothing. I don't know what it was, but that was the first thing I thought, is that there's something festering there. That's just, I don't know. Just,
And they're living there, aren't they?
what's that? I'm saying again.
They're living there in the house.
Well, it's a duplex. So they live on one side, and then the other side, they couldn't keep tenants in. They kept leaving because they were here having so many issues. Now, they told me that, when they first had this problem, when they first moved in 17 years earlier, 16 years before, it was really bad. I mean, they were getting shadow animals and crawlers and just, and it's not like that now. They thought it was gone. I'm not sure it is. I'm really not sure it is. It feels to me like it's just dormant. And I don't know why I would get that smell. I don't know.
It's letting you know. From what I've heard, I think the person that finally kind of cleared the house up a little bit, there was almost like a spiritual deal made, or something, from the best way to describe it. A lot of times things are still there. It's just what I talked about, the murder house, we clear that up, the people are able to sleep, but then when they decide to move, something becomes undormant and starts speaking up again. I think it's the energy and all that could change. It's just with anything, us as human beings, you love each other and all that, but all of a sudden somebody gets into a fight and then there's bad energy and all that. It's almost like the spirit's there. It's waiting to, have somebody go against their word. So, and I think, as far as I know, the person that helped clear this house out has kept their word. And I think whatever else was there kept their word. And it's almost like that's the way it's going to be.
They may have crossed. I think they may be dead. I think they passed away. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that, but I feel like the person passed away.
Well, I think one part of the deal was that they would step away and not do this kind of work anymore.
Exactly. That's what I heard and all that. And, but like I told you, a lot of that, you have to have faith in who you are, in a higher being and all that when you deal with those types of things. Um, when I go into a home, I know it's not me helping, it's a higher power that backs you up. Hence, I don't use that archangel, the paranormal, lightly. I'm not going to get all, religious. It's spiritual with me. I know I'm protected, and I have the confidence that my higher power is protecting me, and then I go in to try and protect others. And that's why I do what I do, whether it be the living that needs to be protected or the dead that needs to be protected or anything like that. These things that we don't understand, we never will. But enough understanding, like I said, use my knowledge of what I know and what I perceive, and hopefully I have enough knowledge to quell those things or anything like that, or work as a team. I don't work with a lot of people.
I was about to ask if there was a team that you work with.
I don't work with a lot of people. I've worked with people in the past, and it's almost like I feel with a lot of the work I do, I don't want to put people in danger. I'd rather check out a place first and then determine, who I might be able to bring in to maybe help out, because it's almost like certain people have certain abilities that might help out. It's like, hey, if I had a plumbing issue, I'm going to get a plumber. So this type of paranormal that I know somebody's good at, I might call them in, or all that. So, there's a lot of people that you get a good Rolodex over the years of people that you could call. But I tend to work by myself on cases and all that. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't, but after all this time, I think it's different. I'm not new, so I think I know the risk and all that. And but I do have people on call. If I go somewhere, people know where I am or anything like that. If anything was to happen,
there's someone that always knows and checks on you.
Exactly. So you have to have that. You never know. But I'm pretty well protected. I got the good background. So I was the eyes behind my head. You never know, because sometimes the living could be more dangerous than the dead. So that's,
you ain't kidding.
You got to be careful who you're dealing with. Yeah, because when some of these cases, they seem to check out all right, but then all of a sudden, just the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kicks in. But it's hard to deal with home cases. They could be very dangerous.
It can be,
and you have to know what you're doing. You can't. I think you got to have some years under your belt before you really do them. And you have to study. You got to read a lot. You got to work with other people.
Experience.
Yeah.
Work with experienced investigators.
Exactly. Like I told you, I started out for a couple of years. I learned some of the ins and outs early on in life with, back in the mid 80s, I got my start with Ed and Lorraine Warren. But, they're very religious to the point where how they do things and all that. And then after, I went off to college, I kind of became dormant for a little while. And then after my mom passed away in 2012, I was always doing stuff, but I think I really dove in after that and made more of a commitment to help people because, hey, I was mourning for my mom's loss and was to the point where I didn't want people to have to go through that. Sometimes you counsel people that have passed loved ones. It's understanding the possibility of what might happen to us after we leave our shell and join the spirit world and whatever that means. So,
yeah, I agree. Interesting. I don't know. I think that I think being able to navigate through the sea of information that you get is really a gift in and of itself, because I mean, I know you have a background that, I don't have the background in the things that you have, but it's hard to weave through, once you've gotten past the fact that they're not crazy, then you get, well, what is this? And who do I need to help me? Do I need someone to help me? I think navigating that is, I tend to be somewhat skeptical, and I don't mean skeptical. I mean, I am skeptical, but I'm skeptical of people. And I don't know that I don't think I have the ability to get through the first part of it. Like, are you crazy? Because that's just where my mind goes. Like, I feel like you're guilty until proven innocent. I feel, if you're telling me that it just started happening, I get skeptical. you've lived in the house for 10 years, but it just started happening, or that you're seeing faces on your dinner napkins,
Mhm.
or, stuff like that makes me go, I don't know. I'm not so sure about this. But if you
Yeah.
just moved into the house and there's something, I'm still not saying it's paranormal, but I feel a little better about it. But I feel like some of these things, it's just too, you've been around long enough to know it just doesn't really manifest that way. It's not going to show up on your dinner
But
napkin.
but you're right. You're right, but you can never disregard anything. Um, I've learned a long time ago that yes, just because we think it can't happen doesn't mean it can't happen. All right. Those are the
Mhm.
things that you have to discern. I know a lot of people, they make fun of, oh, that's just dust. That's a dust orb, or that's a bug, or anything like that. What we really need to look at is, with this, if you look at something like that, like a dust kick up, who's to say that a spirit didn't create that dust kick up to get your attention? And that's why that appeared that way. We don't know. Everybody's like, yeah, it's just dust. Or you don't want to just poo-poo anybody or anything like that. You really have to take everything in. You really have to read people, their eye movement, their body language. Are they telling me the truth? What's really going on here? What is making them talk this way? Sometimes it's, I'm not saying spirit attachment changes people's demeanor or anything like that. Sometimes you could tell when somebody has an attachment just by how they're acting. Or if you talk to their family and they say, well, yeah, well, a few months ago, all of a sudden this started happening. What's the trauma that's going on? Is it something psychological, or is a spirit like doing something? And it just gets to the point, it gets so crazy, and you you have to have critical thinking. You have to think outside the box. It's not easy. I know a lot of people do this, and I've talked about it like before. There's so much different types of paranormal. People are good at certain things and all that. And I always claim, I always say that it's like music. So,
Yeah.
music, some people like country, some people like rock, whatever. It's just like paranormal. Some people are into the demonology, some people are on the spiritual side, some people read tarot cards, but it's still all paranormal, just like country and rock, it's
Some of
all
them are just
music.
thrill seekers.
Yeah. So, but I'm never going to tell them you can't do it that way. Nobody knows the
Mhm.
right way. It all comes down to you. And I talk about this in my talks all the time. When I start a conversation, when I talk to, whoever at a Paracon or anything like that, you don't have to believe anything I say. These are my experiences. This is what happened to me.
Mhm.
I could talk about my murder house. Some people that are listening tonight says, yeah, he's probably full of it. But no, that's what I experienced. That's what happened to me there. Whether you're going to believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me, because that was my experience. In my experience, if that helps you understand the paranormal a little better, or it helps heal you, then I did my job. But I don't expect you to believe everything I say, because you never know. But that was my experience. That's what I got from it. And over all these years, these are experiences that I've had. But not everybody's going to have the same experience. Everybody has a different fingerprint, so everybody experiences things very much differently. But, after a while, I could give information. And if that helps you, move on. Or, you're going to get a lot of people in this industry to say, ah, you're full of it, all this other stuff. That's fine, too. I don't mind, because no matter what you say, you can't change the experience I had. So,
True.
That
So
is true.
let me
I
ask you this.
respect that.
You said you can tell sometimes when someone has an attachment by how they
Mhm.
behave. What does that look?
Yes. It's almost the eye movement. It's sometimes it's unnatural. And it is the old saying that your eyes are the picture to your soul. It's almost like you
Yeah.
could tell by looking somebody in the eyes when something isn't right. Something is off. It isn't a psychological thing. This is something that they're not acting normal. It's a discernment. Am I really good at it? No, I think there's people that are better at it, but I think it comes down to, reading them like that, just from my law enforcement background and dealing with people that have 24/7 to try and get one over on you. They're always trying to manipulate you. And you're in that psychologically day in and day out for the years that I did it. You don't know. So you never know.
Tom, there's a question here. Mary Alice says, when someone has an attachment, do you mean an evil attachment? Can there be an attachment that's not evil?
Oh yeah, there's tons of things that, sometimes people don't know they're psychic, and something could channel through you. It's just trying to get their story out. It doesn't have to necessarily be evil. There is the possibility, but again, we talk about demons tonight. We talk about evil. There are people that when they die, they're jerks in life. They're still going to be jerks, but the possibility of a demon is like 0.0001. Buy your lottery ticket. That's why they make movies about it. But you still have to be prepared for it. That 0.0001. You never know when it's going to happen, and you have to be ready for it. You have to do your best and know that you have faith and that higher power is working through you to help whoever's going through that situation.
I just want to say something on that too. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'll make it quick. But and it's not an attachment. So I want to preface this by saying it's not an attachment. But I know when I read, sometimes people will say to me, "Why were you doing this? Like I'm rubbing my beard."
Yeah.
Or, You're
channeling me.
Channeling you. But I mean, it could be a facial expression. It could be a mannerism. It could be something I said, or you say it in a certain way, and I feel like that's some. It's not that it's not like I'm in trance, but there's something that spirit can affect you to act and do things in certain ways.
Yeah.
They're not evil, it's somebody's grandma.
No, they're giving you a thought. The spirit guide's giving you a thought that, hey, rub your chin that way. That's how that person's father used to do it.
Right. And you don't even know.
Yeah. Sometimes you're getting messages, I guess, if you see a rose and, oh, it was my Aunt Rose or whatever, that's showing you how to purvey that message. And sometimes they give you that mannerism. Sometimes you don't even know why you're doing it. Like,
you don't even know it.
Picking up on it.
So I'm going to ask you, we only have like a minute and a half. Can you answer this real quick? Mary asked, have you ever met someone that knew that, I don't know if it's knew that they had an attachment or you knew that they had an attachment. I'm not sure what.
It's funny. I was at the Connecticut Paracon a couple of years ago, and this gentleman came up to me. He says, nobody will help me. I've had this attachment for years and all this other stuff. And he was pretty wild about it. I think to the point where things have been bothering him for so long that it changed his psychological demeanor. So it was hard to discern, but I could feel that things were affecting him. But at that moment that he was out of the house, it wasn't really affecting him at the time. And that's what I was telling him. I says, really, it's not affecting. He says, yeah, they're not with me now. And I said, well, that's what I see. But I could see that psychologically it's changed him to the point where I think somebody that isn't as well versed is not going to be able to decipher that. They're just going to say the guy's a wacko. Right. I told him it's more of, I'd want to see him in his home and how things changed for him after I met him. But he was like very erratic and never gave me his number and how to reach out to him and all that. But hopefully, maybe I'll see him again or something. But
Tom, I want to thank you for being here. We only have about a minute left. So I want to thank you for being here and coming on the show tonight, because I think this is fascinating. I also want to just remind everyone, please, if you want tickets to either of these events, you can go on Facebook, Dark Echoes Paranormal, get the link there. Go on my Facebook page. There's a link to the events there as well. And you can get the link and get tickets. I think there's one left to the Demon House, and there's a few left for the Clifton 5 in Huntington, Pennsylvania. So thank you for being here. Definitely have to have you back. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, I just want to let everybody know if they want to go on the haunted trolley ride with us in April. Connecticut Paracon's coming up, Salem Paracon, any of the psychic fairs that we're doing. It's all on my website, and I'm always posting that. Thomas Patrick Gormley Facebook, Archangel the Paranormal TikTok and Instagram.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week right here on the Paranormal Project. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Paranormal Project radio show with Scott Allen and Christina Bowen. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. While you're there, leave us a rating and review. We'll be back next week with more exciting guests. Now go out there and explore the paranormal.